Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be talking about police officers when they shoot a suspect in the back. We're going to talk about when it is justified to shoot a suspect in the back, when it is not justified to shoot a suspect in the back. We're going to talk about the legal grounds, the Supreme Court cases that led officers or that guide officers on when and how they can make that decision. And we're going to watch a little bit of body camera footage that shows an instance where where officers used deadly force to stop a fleeing felon. And we're going to discuss whether or not this is a justified use of force. The use of force that we're going to be discussing is this one that happened in Pierce County, Washington on May the 10th, 2022. Sorry, it's on the screen right there. May the 12th, sorry. His crime spree started on May the 10th, 2022. So it's May the 12th, 2022 in Pierce County, Washington, where officers were chasing a guy who was a car theft suspect and shot him in the back as he was fleeing. So we're going to use that case as kind of our example on what is justified and what is not justified. Now, when it comes to police officers shooting a suspect in the back or a fleeing suspect, the case that we look at and in law enforcement is Tennessee versus Garner. The basis of this case, this was in, let's see, it's argued in 1984. Who knows when it happened, 1979 or 1981, 82. I'm not quite sure, and I'm not going to read through the entire document to tell you this. We're just going to go over kind of the 18,000 foot view of this case. But in the state of Tennessee, back in the day, they actually had a law that said police officers were authorized to use deadly force to stop a fleeing felon from getting away. It was actually written into their state code. On this particular day, whenever this day occurred, because I'm too lazy to look it up right now, a police officer responded to a call of a burglary in progress. He arrived at the home. I'm pretty sure he went to the front door, didn't see anything out of the ordinary, went to the back door, and there was a privacy fence type situation. Saw an open window, called out, whatever police officers do when they respond to those kind of calls. A suspect jumped out of a window and started running, jumped over a privacy fence, and continued to flee. The officer, who I don't have his name, was just a Tennessee law enforcement officer, ran over the fence, saw this guy fleeing, shot him, leaned over the fence and shot this guy as he was fleeing. The family and everybody sued. This is actually out of a civil case. They sued the state of Tennessee, and the Tennessee Supreme Court actually ruled this a justified shooting. The officer was not held liable. He was not criminally charged. The state said that this was a justified shooting. The attorney for the decedent, because Garner actually passed away, took this all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court agreed to hear this, and they actually ruled against the state of Tennessee in this case. The webpage that I have up, I want to talk about this really quickly, just because it's a very interesting source. And if you're interested in these major Supreme Court rulings, I would encourage you to go here. This is Justia Law. They have a lot of Supreme Court cases. You can read through everything that was talked about in the ruling, the arguments, all of the facts and all that other kind of stuff. But the other thing is the way it is, it's organized. If you look over to the left side of the screen, it says oral arguments. You can actually click this link and you can actually listen to the arguments in the Supreme Court and hear both sides trying to make their case. And you can hear the Supreme Court justices questioning these people. So the plaintiff, I believe, or Garner's lawyer was the first one to present his case, came up and said, this wasn't a justified shooting. He didn't pose any danger to anyone. He didn't deserve to die. And then the defendant, or the defense in this case, would be the state of Tennessee or the city where this occurred. And they came up and said, listen, we have this law, and a burglary is a very dangerous crime. We have a lot of violent people that commit burglaries. It poses a greater risk to society that they let this fleeing felon go than it does to try to catch him some other time. You can hear all of the arguments right there. And what the Supreme Court said was, they said, just a fleeing felon alone does not give an officer justification to shoot somebody. And they went ahead and so they struck down the Tennessee law and then they put in some specific parameters on when an officer can shoot a fleeing suspect. And that's what I have on the screen here. This is the crux of Tennessee versus Garner. So Tennessee versus Garner, shooting a fleeing suspect. Tennessee law at the time allowed for officers to use deadly force to stop all fleeing felons. The Supreme Court ruled this to be unconstitutional. Then they went on further to say, and I'm summarizing quite a bit because you can see how many pages that was over on their side. It says deadly force may not be used unless necessary to prevent, I think I have a typo there, prevent the escape, and the officer has probable cause to believe the suspect poses a significant threat of deadly force, or a specific threat of death or serious physical injury to the officer or others. So basically what the Supreme Court was saying when they made those statements was, you can't just shoot any fleeing felon. Just being a felon does not mean that an officer can use deadly force against you. Now, an officer can use deadly force against a fleeing felon if they have probable cause to believe that allowing that person to continue their escape causes a greater risk to the public or to other officers than stopping them right now. And if you believe that allowing someone to continue to escape causes a greater risk of harm to fellow officers or to the public or to yourself, then you are authorized to use deadly force against that person. This is the doctrine that is used often when somebody is running from officers and they're carrying a firearm. I've got several of them over here. So if someone's running, they're carrying a firearm and their back is to the officers, officers can often be justified in using deadly force and shooting that person in the back because they are running with a firearm in their hands. Therefore, they pose a significant risk of death or serious injury to other law enforcement officers who might try to apprehend them, potentially the public. There's a lot of reasons why somebody running with a firearm could be considered a dangerous person. And often, in every case that I'm aware of, at least on body camera, officers that are shooting people in the back that are running with a firearm have been justified. An interesting thing that happened here recently in Franklin County, Ohio, where I live, with the case of Jason Mead, he made statements that he was chasing after somebody who was running from him while holding a firearm. He said that as he confronted that person, the person pointed the fire at him. He shot that person. A firearm was found under that person's body, which that person was Casey Goodson, and Deputy Jason Mead was charged with murder in that case, and that case went to a hung jury, which kind of blows my mind. Given the facts of Graham versus Garner and the tests that we've developed, that case never should have gone to trial, in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. We're talking about this case in Pierce County now. So what I'm going to do is, with the information I just described to you about catching fleeing felons and whether or not, I'm going to get this back on the screen, whether or not it's okay for officers to shoot someone in the back, and that kind of stuff, I want you to think about this particular case as you're watching it. So you can watch this case out of Pierce County, Washington, where officers are chasing a car theft suspect and end up shooting him in the back. You guys are going to watch. I'm going to get out of the way. After that, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about whether or not it was justified and the reasons for that, right? So I'm going to get out of the way and play the video now.
County 479, he's stuck in traffic at 160th and Canyon. I'm trying to get him out.
If you stuck in traffic, 160th and Canyon.
Get out of the car! He just ran over my foot. Get out of the car! Stop! Stop! Stop!
He just ran another vehicle. He's going behind him.
Anyone behind the vehicle, he ran another vehicle. Pulled into the Pacific Pride parking lot, 1045.
Whoever's behind me, start calling him.
Ryzen, course number 2. Also, as we're going through the business district, we're going to pop back out on 160 and probably.
He's going to head towards 160 and try to get sticks out.
376 has eastbound on 160 and then 62nd Avenue, sticks out. We're heading northbound at 160 right now. Heading eastbound. Warning southbound, 62nd. Positive contact with the stick. Positive contact with the stick.
They're getting on a motorcycle. Let me see your hands!
County shot fire. Shot fire of any officer's been hit.
Alrighty, we're back. Before I get too far into my analysis or anything, we're going to do this kind of like we're teaching a class. I want you to think about and just either say it out loud or go down in the comments right now. Whatever the timestamp is, put the timestamp of the video right now and go in the comments and say whether or not you think this is a justified shooting. I want the timestamp to be there because you're going to demonstrate what you know and what you think now, and then what you think after you know additional information about the case. So the Graham versus Connor, or not Graham versus Connor, Tennessee versus Garner. That's what we're talking about today. This is the standard. So deadly force may not be used unless necessary to prevent the escape and officers have probable cause to believe the suspect poses a significant threat of death or serious injury to officers or the others. Now, this particular shooting in Pierce County, Washington, when I saw the video, the first time that I saw it, and I actually had a discussion about it on my Discord channel, which I don't discuss things in there very often. I'll often get alerts and I'll kind of peek through what's going on, but I don't have time to be in there and talking all the time. But I do see a fair amount of what happens in there. Somebody posted this video in there and I had a brief discussion with them. Said this is, in my opinion, this is not a justified shooting. This is a bad shooting. This is a property crime. This is a, Tennessee versus Garner, that was a burglary suspect. This is a car theft suspect. Everybody knows that car thefts are just property crimes, and you can't use deadly force to prevent a property crime suspect from getting away. That's clear. That's clear versus in Tennessee versus Garner. That's what we're all trained to do. So I watched the videos, and then I started searching because I was going to use this as a case of what not to do as a police officer. I was going to talk about how this guy's probably going to be on trial and all this other stuff. I looked up some news articles about it, and I actually found that the deputy was cleared. This was determined to be a justified use of force. And when I started going through the article, which I'm not going to go through all of it here, but the suspect, 19-year-old Brian Mendoza, allegedly stole this BMW at gunpoint. And then they were linked to a truck theft and another attempted theft. Multiple suspects in a BMW pointed a gun at someone. As you're going down through, you find out that this guy wasn't just stealing cars. He was robbing people at gunpoint. And not only did he rob people at gunpoint, but police surrounded him and tried to stop him. He showed that he was going to do damn near anything he could to escape, including harming other officers. If you watch the body camera, there was moments where he ran over an officer's foot. He was ramming multiple vehicles in parking lots and on the road. If he's already committing armed robberies, and it is believed that he is armed and dangerous, also a firearm was discovered on him. That's what I found out according to this article right here. Given all of that information, the court said, you know what, this is a justified shooting. We are not going to prosecute him for this. Unfortunately for the young man in the video, he is now paralyzed for the rest of his life, but that is a consequence of his poor decisions. So if you go back, I'll pull up the Tennessee versus Garner again. Deadly force may not be used unless necessary to prevent the escape and the officer has probable cause to believe the suspect poses a significant threat of death or serious physical injury to others or the officer. That's one where in this particular case it said, look, he's already robbed multiple people at gunpoint. He's ramming vehicles. He's a danger to the public and to officers, and it's believed that he's currently armed, and he was actually armed at the time that he was shot. The court said this is justified, and given that information, I agree with them as well. So when it comes to cases of people being shot in the back by police officers, the reason that these are often justified is because of, I'll pull it up right here, Tennessee versus Garner. If you'd like to learn more about Tennessee versus Garner and the arguments that were made for and against the prosecution in that case, go read the case for yourself. Go listen to the oral arguments. Oh, I thought it was going to play right away. I thought it was going to be cool. Here, I'll do this.
I mean that. I'm just trying to understand.
Right. Yes, he when he pulls his weapon, that's what he's intending to do.
So it's really more than apprehending him then.
No,
So it's really interesting because on this particular page, when it's playing the words,
the purpose of it.
It usually highlights the justice at the top of the screen who is talking. Go to Justia, go listen to the case, educate yourself on keep saying Graham versus Connor because that's the other landmark use of force case. Tennessee versus Garner, fleeing suspects, when to shoot, when not to shoot. There's the information for you. I'll talk to you guys later.